and they used to torture Polish people. There was a whole group called SS Galicia. You can go look it up right now. Even the Polish government is angry about it. They want some of their land back in Lvov, which was taken away from them when they colluded with the Nazis. So don't ever say that the Ukrainian people was with the Allied forces. When they colluded with the SS Nazi, they were part of it. There's a whole guy there called Stefan Bandera. Go look him up.
Every territory in that region has somebody that conspired with the Nazis. But that area generally was a part of the Allies.
Excuse me, one previous speaker was talking about how Ukraine was allied to the US during World War II. I mean, I am older than the state of Ukraine. I am older. I'm only 30.
You are older than the
what do you mean
recognition.
There was no
you are older than the UN recognition
what are you talking about?
Of the nation of Ukraine.
Present day, they are not an ally. I am sorry.
You are older
I'm sorry.
than the
no,
Ukrainian
I'm sorry.
language.
You lock up political opposition. You block
and
up.
Ukrainian
soldiers hold on. Any country that locks up reporters, Benjamin, don't make me mute you, then you can go. Any country that locks up reporters that are the opposition, any country that locks up their people who are the opposition is not an ally. I'm sorry, and it's disgusting to say this.
Wait, the United States locks up reporters every day.
Listen.
Just to be clear, the United States locks up reporters every day. You want to look up
Who?
Yeah, give me hold my beer.
Who?
Every day they lock up reporters.
Who is locked up? This is the horse shit that I am really interested in. I'm sorry. Give me a name.
Really know that.
Yeah, this is bull.
What opposition news outlet is locked up?
International variation.
Just give me a second. I'll get you that link.
You do that. You do.
In the meantime,
Jesus Christ, that's the dumbest shit I have ever heard. Here's two things that are true. We are not a friend of Zelensky, and we are not a friend.
Wait, you're going to apologize
Messy
to me
peace is
personally,
about the only thing.
You're going to
I'm not
apologize to me personally.
Shit.
And make me an admin in your house when I show you that the United States locks up.
Here's actually what I'm going to do. We do not lock up reporters for being political opponents. If you commit a crime, yes, you go to jail. You don't get locked up because it's illegal to speak against the government. That's some horse shit.
Well, I just have a question for you. Just curious to hear your perspective personally of what countries do you think are U.S. allies at the moment?
I'm going to be honest. I don't care if we have to fucking stand alone. I don't care if we have to stand alone. Being drug into a war with Russia is not an option.
Nobody has ever advocated for us to have
you don't think
boots
so?
on the ground in Ukraine. I've not heard that, but I'm asking you, do you have any allies or no? I know we can stand alone. We're really tough. We're cowboys, but do we have any allies in the world?
Of course we do. We are a member of NATO. Of course we have allies. But I will tell you what, it is not at any cost. We pay the lion's share, and I absolutely do not want to hear words like security assurances in a messy shit show that should have been addressed. And I think we all can agree that that window on which this should have been addressed was years ago. Now we are left with a shit show. So it's got to be a messy piece that's brokered somehow, but this security assurances, while they're in the middle of a hot war, is pouring gas on a fire. I agree with Trump on that.
I shared the link in the comment section where Zelensky is actually telling a group of reporters, like, as soon as the war started, American sons and daughters will die in this war and they need to come over here. That is the most...
I saw that too. They are actually calling for that. I don't know, like, why are we pretending he isn't trying to strong-arm American troops? Do you know that Trump wasn't the only one to yell at Zelensky, but now we're worried about decorum? Biden also did.
So NATO countries are allies. Who else? Israel. Anybody else?
Australia.
I guess I'm just kind of waiting for Russia. Is Russia our ally or friend?
Well, I think one viable answer to your question would be the nation who helped the Americans fight the Nazis, the people who were slaughtering Jewish people all around the world, the nation who paraded 60,000 Nazi soldiers in Moscow in 1944.
So Russia
Which is
is our ally.
I haven't finished. Listen. Hey, which is Russia. That could be a very significant ally to the US today, in my opinion, because they were, and they proved it. And they proved it. Correct.
Rooster, I'm not sure if I'm saying your name right. Is it Rooster or?
Rooster, whatever works.
Yeah, just a quick question. Do you think that we should be grateful to the country that sent 25 million people to the meat grinder to so that we can enjoy the democracy that we have today?
So you're saying Russia actually tried to save America in the Second World War, and they did so by sending 25 million people? Is that
You just twisted my words. You just twisted my words. I just asked a simple question.
Okay.
Do you think we should give thanks to the country that sent 25 million people to their death so that we could have democracy in Europe?
So I'm repeating your question. You said Russia sent You're claiming Russia sent 25 million people to save the U.S. during the Second World War. Is that what you're saying?
No,
I don't know if I'm twisting your words because I'm using your words. I'm not. There's
I'll
no
repeat
new
it to you
vocabulary.
again. Do you think we should give thanks to the country that sent 25 million people to the meat grinder, which is a fact, to save Europe and so that we can have democracy today?
So you are saying, again, I'm repeating your question. You were saying Russia sent 25 million. So far, we're good, right? And they did it with intent to save our democracy.
Yeah.
That's literally what you said.
Uh-huh.
That's like the biggest bullshit I've ever heard in my life.
What are they teaching in the history books in America? I just want to know that.
I don't think anybody in this room, I don't think Al would agree with you that Russia sent 25 million people to save our democracy. I think that's just...
Yeah, they didn't save their own country, only ours.
Well, there would have never been Europe, as we know today, to say the least. You can look at it the way you want, but this is factual. There would have never been Europe today without Russian intervention and fighting back.
How about the American? Did you miss that part?
Oh, did you just watch Saving Private Ryan, or did you actually open up history books?
So you're saying America came there? I don't. Be clear. Tell me what you're trying to say.
I want you to look at the history books when the Allied forces landed in Normandy, right? And when the war actually started.
I don't know what you're trying to say.
Look, what I'm trying to say, I happen to have watched this while you guys were talking. I was watching 60,000 Nazi soldiers that were captivated during World War II in 1944 being paraded in Moscow. And, it kind of like brought so many kind of thoughts to my mind. This is what I want to share with the room. And I'm going to share the link in the chat as well. It might bring to your mind the Russian role during the war. Yeah, and this might also be kind of inspiring. I haven't finished. Listen, hey, listen. You might.
No, you don't say hey. I'm asking you a question.
You might finish.
Was that because Russia?
This might spark about who are the true.
So my question was that because Russia was invaded by Germany, or was that because Russia was trying to save our democracy in the U.S.?
Oh, they were totally trying to save us. They didn't care about their own country, don't you?
I mean, this is crazy talk. This is like the craziest shit I've ever heard.
Well, just like they killed, what, 3 million of their own people to save America?
Look, I don't know why we're even arguing about that. I mean, it's pretty clear that Russia was, or the Soviet Union was attacked, and then they tried to accomplish two things. First is to survive, and then clearly stated goal by Stalin was to create a safety buffer for the future, which was accomplished by essentially creating the socialist bloc, which provided very comfortable cushion, and that was called the Warsaw Pact, which was the opposite of NATO. So I think that's what Stalin tried to do. Like the de facto, the government that he installed in Eastern Europe were by Western standards not democratic, but I just don't think that you should respect or don't respect any particular country based on whether or not they follow the democratic model. I mean, I think that countries have the right to sovereignty and we can respect them, just like I think we should respect Russia and their concerns about their safety right now, whether they're democratic or not.
Well, one thing's for certain. I am quite certain of a couple things. But first of all, the inquiry into joining NATO, certainly to pretend that wasn't a really intense provocation is silly. Also, messing with the ability to get to warm water ports. I mean, there were numerous things. To act like this just came out of nowhere is just, it's childish.
Now, did you hear the earlier conversation? Do you think that we should be grateful to Russia for saving our democracy during the Second World War?
Mr. Russia was not.
It doesn't matter whether we're grateful or not. They were part of. I mean, they definitely were involved in our side at that point.
To say the least.
And this really has no bearing on today, though. I mean, like where we are today is a very different world. The light-up is different, the circumstances are different, and even using, well, Ukraine was historically, it doesn't matter now. These are different times, and the alignment is very different. Our goals are very different. Ukraine has a track record of human rights abuses. I don't even know why we're pretending like this isn't a thing.
I just guarantee you that because I have lived in Ukraine.
I don't get two shits where you live. The world can see you. When you have religious groups banned from the country, when you have forced conscription, I'm sorry, but it's not a good look. I don't care where in the world.
You realize the United States also has conscription, right?
Honey, we've had many wars. We don't drag men off the streets.
Drafted people in World War II, right?
Yeah, and since then we don't do that. You realize that, sweetheart?
Since then.
Yeah, we don't do that.
We haven't had to do it.
We don't have to do it. Exactly. Because you know why? You know why we don't have to do it? Do you know why we don't have to do it? And we haven't had to since? Do you know why we don't do it, Benjamin? Do you know why?
Because we're a big enough country.
Hopefully,
we haven't had to do it.
Also, then why did we do it in Vietnam? Because I will tell you why. It was an unwinnable war. Americans knew it, and it is why people dodged the draft. People were being set into a meat grinder. If you want to see what happens, try to force Americans into a hot war with Russia, you will see the same fucking thing. We're not doing.
I just get the feeling you just don't have any clue what you're talking about, right? Like
You wish I didn't. I know you wish I didn't, Benjamin, but I...
to U.S. journalists as being arrested in the United States.
We had a journalist who was arrested by a begrudged local. Do you understand the difference between arresting your political opponents on a national stage? Do you understand the difference? I know you're smarter than this. So don't insult me with your bullshit.
Don't you think that Donald Trump was arrested as a political opponent in the United States?
So do you think that's what happened?
Do you?
No, do you?
Well, I don't know.
Oh.
Benjamin, do you know the term?
He wasn't arrested though. So now what?
He was arraigned.
No, not arrested. Never spent any time in jail. Now what?
Benjamin, do you know the term?
Litigation is far different than arresting and locking them up. Do you understand the difference? See, now I'm thinking you're not quite as smart as you think.
And Ukraine right now has massive record of human rights violation. That includes journalists, and they, you just cherry pick like one or two cases when
Ukraine has been under martial law for 2 years. Is that what you're talking about?
Benjamin, they killed off Gonzalo Lira, an American journalist who was on the ground that I used to watch, who was independent. He warned about this on his last tweet. He said, "If I disappear,
I don't
which is
know.
going to be
A lot
soon."
of journalists
Well,
are
I mean,
covering the war, but
what about those
journalists die when
what
they
about?
cover wars.
But you're all over the place, Benjamin. What happened to all the Russian Orthodox churches that got kicked out? Yeah, and what happened to all the opposition?
What about persecuting those
Wait,
people?
the Russian Orthodox Church is a front for
Oh,
Russian.
now
for
it's a
the
front.
Russian
You
government.
sound like a
they
real.
try to make you believe, Benjamin.
What's the distance
You are fully
between the Russian
full.
Orthodox Church and the Russian government? You know that they meet together, the pontiff and Putin meet together. They
You are
Benjamin,
so
yeah.
shit. You're like
Like
a
saying that-
Ukrainian ambassador, is what you.
Benjamin,
I
are American
live in
Catholics?
Ukraine.
Benjamin,
It's
are
so-
American, are American Catholic spies for Vatican? I mean, what kind of nonsense is that?
Well, look, it wouldn't surprise me if the popes and the priests.
Oh my
and,
fucking. Okay, I never.
Oh,
mind.
yeah.
Sorry,
Okay.
surprise me. I mean, too
I'm
bad for
sorry,
you.
that's
that it
just some
wouldn't
dumb
surprise me.
shit I can't listen to anymore.
That is-
Fucking. I mean, let's suppose that some local yokel journalist got locked up by the county sheriff, and that means that the United States government is locking up its political opponents. I mean, do you hear yourself?
I mean, journalists in the United States are not immune from being arrested because they're just like anybody else. They're not specifically being arrested for
Changing
being
the
journalists.
claim from journalists to political opponents. You're moving the goalpost.
No.
because
Do you
want first-
understand the
Hey.
difference? My God, are you fucking dense? Do you
look up
understand the difference?
Cardinal Lay. Do you know that Cardinal Lay was arrested
Do
in the
you
United States?
understand that if
Was
you
charged in
lock
the United
up?
States for trafficking children.
Okay, so if Trump, let's say, has Jim Acosta arrested and thrown in jail, then you might have a point. But some dipshit sheriff
Cardinal
that didn't
Lay was
like what
brought
was going
back
on.
to the Vatican, and he's being
Dude,
protected
shut
by.
the fuck up. So again, if the dude in Georgia got arrested by some dipshit sheriff because they didn't want their dirt getting out, it's a little bit different. The fact that you're trying to pretend like this is the same thing is really retarded.
I think the problem with Ukrainians is that when they speak, including their president, they think as if they are actually a part of this conflict that is, I don't know, that is goes any inch beyond just being a mere proxy in this war. They don't realize that just like just being a simple pawn that are being played with. They speak as if they're an actual part in this war. They don't know what's happening.
Moose, tell us what part of what Benjamin said is true. The United States locks up journalists for speaking out against the government. Is that true? Moose, do tell us. Jim Acosta, who? I mean, who?
I just ran a quick search, and for what it's worth, in the past like 20 years, every single journalist ever arrested in the United States was as part of the what they call the I guess the crowd control measures. So they were participating or covering some kind of violent, unsanctioned protests. So they were essentially journalists are not part of the crowd.
True, no.
That's the only case.
Right, you have to actually
They're clear on
break
that.
a law.
They're not immune. They're
Right.
not immune. They're not immune to arrest.
Exactly.
Was
They have
that
to actually break a law. You can't just be arrested because you said, I don't like Trump. Otherwise, we'd have a whole lot of them in jail, wouldn't we?
There is no such case to date that anybody has ever been arrested for just
Was
saying,
this
"I
part of
don't know."
Operation Mockingjay? What?
I'm not sure about the actual terms and how it was called, but literally, like 2020, some like more than 100 journalists were arrested or detained, with many incidents occurring during the nationwide protests following the killing of George Floyd. Recently, like 12 journalists were arrested or detained, including those covering pro-Palestinian protests, which we all know both kind of protests were extremely violent.
Hold on
So,
one second.
You
too.
can't seriously police to differentiate when the such critical situations, who is part of the mob, who is covering the mob, whatnot. I mean,
So Rebecca Jones, let's talk about that, Benjamin. Do you know why she was arrested? Unauthorized access to state computer systems. Okay? Like, you don't get arrested here because you said XYZ politician is bad. So, Benjamin, would you like to talk about that? She actually broke the law. There's a big difference.
I just think.
Oh, I forgot. She also got charged with cyber stalking. This is your hero of virtue. You're saying was arrested out of what? Some type of persecution? This again, Benjamin. Come on, you could do better than this. Moose, is he right? Huh? Moose.
I just think that going back to the topic, the best path to peace is this Zelensky guy needs to go. They need to have a new election set up in Ukraine, and the American government needs to negotiate with a new person, because this person does not want peace. He's a very shisty character, and for them, and then the funny thing that worries me is all these people caping for Ukraine. They wouldn't go there to the front line and fight for their freedom. They wouldn't send their sons and their daughters, and neither does the mayor of Kiev, Klitschko, who's a boxer, and his son is been given immunity. Most of their government official sons and daughters have been given immunity and told to stay away from the front line. They are living in yachts abroad. You can look it up, Rooster. You can laugh all you want. You can look it up. The mayor of Kiev's son.
2 minutes ago, I
Yeah.
thought you guys were saying we should not judge them by our democratic, sort of values and the way we run our government.
I get in the
Russia,
queue.
but for Ukraine, you suddenly you have a different standard to judge their government and how they run their country, right?
Well, we don't send our sons and daughters to fight our wars either. No, that's for the peasants. We'll give you a free education, maybe, and maybe some half-rate healthcare.
I mean, what does prayers and a flag on your bio do actually for Ukraine? How about you go to the front line, pick up a gun, save democracy, show them a different way of fighting against the Russian horde. That will truly help the situation. No flag on any bio will truly help.
Who are you talking to?
I'm just talking to people that have their bios as Ukraine instead of their own country's flags.
Okay,
This is
if you're
double.
talking to me, I have a response for you.
How do I get in the queue? This is double. I just wanted to say, I don't know who was in the other room. It was the Ukraine room. I just got so much satisfaction causing Breyer to have a meltdown. I just had to say that. Thank
I mean, someone was talking about a path to peace by probably a different puppet head in Ukraine, but it is worth mentioning that the current puppet head in Ukraine didn't allow for the previous elections to take place. He simply cancelled the elections. President Trump is
Because they're in a fucking war. Because they're in a fucking war. It's not uncommon for countries to delay elections when they're inactive.
So that's why he was so. Thank you so much for this for this comment. But that's why he was so entitled and so insisting on prolonging and continuing this war endlessly in our end in the Oval Office. Thank you so much. Now that makes it really clear. Then thank you. So he keeps cancelling any future elections to take. Okay, cool.
Why? This is the first time there was a conversation about peace at all, and he was not involved. Trump already made the deal, great deal by the way, on his behalf. Everything is Russia's. Ukraine gets nothing. And for him not accepting that, you're saying he wants to stay in office. That's ridiculous.
I think the taxpayers should get their money back first. That should be the priority. America first. They should get their money back. And then maybe we'll see. Maybe we'll see if we can help you out with the Russians.
I mean, Rookster, when you talk about, talking to the Ukrainian, President Trump having had to talk to the Ukrainians first and considering the Ukrainians a legit part in this conflict.
How long has your boss Putin been in office, the Russian president? How long has he been in office? Because I know you like to
I have no
really
idea. I have no idea. Let me tell you something. I'm not. Look, I have no idea.
Whether Zelensky stayed one extra term, and Putin has been the fucking president since I was born.
I don't know either. Look, I have only looked at the news recently. I'm not knowledgeable about all of it, but I know this, and this is factual. I can provide the links for it. Trump was trying to explore an opportunity for a process towards negotiating peace. Apparently today, Russia, it is okay with Russia both ways, whether there is an attempt to peace or not. Apparently, the Russian situation on the ground today is apparently, for and it is indifferent. Every time UK Prime Minister and Macron were asked about security guarantees, etc., they smiled and replied to the reporters that we need first to go and explore the opportunity to initiate a process for peace before talking about any security guarantees. They know themselves that we need to see whether the Russians would even say yes to negotiations in the first place. Hello? Who said that the Russians would accept any preconceived conditions or?
Love music.
The West still doesn't know. The West still doesn't know. That Ukrainian.
I'm asking you a question.
I haven't finished. Please, you're cutting me off and you want answers to
I don't care that you're
questions.
not finished. I don't care that you're not finished.
Well, I don't care about you either then.
So, I'm asking you, is
So
that
what?
because Putin wants to stay in office forever?
I don't care
You
about
just used
Putin.
you just
You're not
used that
listening.
fact.
You're not reading the
You
numbers.
just used that fact against Zelensky, saying that he wants the war to continue because he wants to stay in office. Is that
The
also
current
true for the other
situation,
side?
Rookster, honey. The current situation today in
You
Europe
call me honey,
is that the UK, is that the British Army today,
I like to be called honey. I'm homophobic like that.
Damn, now who's gonna create drama on the stage? It's gonna get boring.
Oh, I can light it up if you want. Okay. Brewster's like, oh shit.
I think Putin is not only ready for negotiations right now, but it serves his best interests. Another question is, of course, that he outlined his conditions very clearly, but it's not something that Zelensky can accept. But I'm afraid.
But see, that's the problem. Zelensky did accept, and then wanted to go back on it. So, in real time, we basically saw a bait and switch.
There was
I
Minsk
love
one, Minsk two
moving.
agreements, and yeah, the U.S. and yes was the one who talked Zelensky out of it, literally, which was very unfortunate and reckless.
It was very reckless. Probably blowing up the pipelines was reckless, but I dig.
I don't think Zelensky has much choice. I actually interviewed the mayor of Kiev and his brother here in Los Angeles at their gym when they were out here, and they're vicious guys. I wouldn't be surprised if they're sitting in the wings just waiting for something to happen. I'm not saying it will be like, I don't know, a CIA kind of thing, but I have a feeling they're watching all of this saying, Oh, and Rookster, we forgot the Philippines is an ally of the U.S. Did everybody go quiet? Yeah, I was about to go. Bueller? I mean, I think war is still one of the biggest businesses in the world, unfortunately, you know. And so when money gets involved, things get really corrupted. People have to want peace. I mean, I think there's a difference between the citizens and the government that they may want completely different things. So it's tragic, and human lives are lost in the process.
Well, then you have to admit that we're witnessing something new, because finally there is a president who actually is very clear that he doesn't.
Yeah, the truth is he really doesn't have a dog in the game. I mean, to him to offer to buy rare earth minerals from Ukraine, so that there's a financial interest in the air, is a very interesting idea. I mean, what's Ukraine really supposed to do against Russia? Like, you know, if they're a much smaller country, what are they supposed to do, regardless of the circumstances? You know, I'm sorry, my heart goes out.
See, I think what people do not understand sometimes that is the fact that, you know, when they talk about quote unquote security guarantees, it's a very well defined legal term. So for any country to provide quote unquote security guarantee to any other country, it means like those are very strict obligations. And that means that, you know, really some kind of commitment to direct military confrontation. And that's, I think it'll be extremely reckless for America to make any promises of that kind. But it does not mean, in my opinion, that it does not mean, in my opinion, that Trump actually did not have any plans for the peace, and his only purpose was just to, you know, get this, you know, share of this rare earth metals and just basically cynically exploit Ukraine. I think his idea was that, okay, let me just, like, anything short of direct military commitment, let me just start with any kind of attempt to recover, at least partially, all this money that we spent on your military, on your weaponry and whatnot. And then, once we're satisfied with that, he probably would have some, he would push further. He would say, let's make some territorial concessions. Let's make some guarantees that, like, for the next 20 years, I remember that being discussed. For the next 20 years, Ukraine will not be seeking NATO membership, and Putin was very clear. He said that would satisfy us. And of course, he added to that of course Crimea belongs to Russia, and so does Zaporozhye and whatever it is that they right now they covered. So anyway, so there is a plan. It's just that Trump, rightly so, I think, does not want any military commitments, and he's right. Who needs Third World War? I don't.
If you listen to the whole, go ahead. I was going to say, if you listen to the whole press interview, and you listen to Brett Baier after on Fox, his interview with him, every time, the second time he would say security concerns, the security agreements, he would then follow up very quickly with air support. What Zelensky wants is air support. He's ready to acquiesce the Donbass region. Putin wants more than just a one-lane highway or a two-lane highway to get to Crimea. He wants a warm water port. They're ready to make a deal. What Zelensky wants is some sort of commitment to air support if Putin doesn't live up to it, because as he said, the full interview, if you watched it, 25 times, I don't know if it's true or not, but he said 25 times since 2014, Putin has made a deal and then broken it. That's what he was complaining.
There were a number of problems with this interview. The first, maybe most glaring, a few, but there's obviously a language barrier, right? When Zelensky's saying, if the U.S. was in my shoes, I think you guys would be upset too. And then I'm saying, well, don't tell me how. There's a little bit of a language barrier. But the biggest problem was, and J.D. Vance pointed it out, that they were having a very private conversation, which they agreed not to air publicly. And then the minute they get on TV, Zelensky starts doing his little bit of arrogant Ukrainian thing. My people are suffering, you should help me. They just weren't communicating, honestly. It was bad.
Yeah, it seemed to me like it was a part two of an argument they had in Munich. It seemed like they just picked up right where they left off.
They're not speaking the same language. I mean, they're not, he doesn't get it, they don't get him, he doesn't get them. So immediately he runs to Europe to start her. Like, can you help us? He's going to France, he's going to Germany, like anybody that he thinks he can get to understand. And I think he has a very interesting message for the world, but he's just not articulating it well. And to his credit, I mean, English is not his first language. I think there's a huge language barrier, and then also the personality clash thing is big.
He could have had an interpreter.
Listen, we're armchair quarterbacks. We have no idea how many chess pieces are on the board, what they are. The biolabs in Ukraine, it was an announcement today that we have evidence of 30 U.S. biolabs. The thing about NATO, that's a big pickle for the Russians. It's just a lot of stuff here. How much, what type of things is Zelensky, since he's been president, how wealthy has he become?
I think Zelensky, for one thing, he was conditioned to have a certain attitude towards himself.
I'm guessing they kicked money back to Biden and all of his criminal cronies. So now he comes in and he's dealing with Trump, and he's not realizing that. And so at one point he said, well, that was your president. Trump didn't say, no, he wasn't. Kind of like saying, you're in his mafia, and no, he's not. And so I think there's a huge language problem, not just language, but just misunderstanding of who's talking to who, what kind of language they should be using. They could have gotten something done, but not like this. I mean, I don't know. I wish they could have turned the thing off for 10 minutes, and I could have shown up and brokered a deal between them.
But all these years, Zelensky was getting very consistent message from the West, and the message was, you are, Mr. President, really fighting our war. So we're like, have this eternal gratitude towards you. So don't you even think of thanking us or whatever. It's our honor and pleasure to give you more and more money. And then suddenly he comes and here's President Trump, who has a very different attitude. He said, like, what about, like, or, Vice President Vance, like,
He's actually on the
this
record.
once.
He's actually on the record 32 times thanking the United States, American people, U.S. military, USA, 32 times. So you want to repeat Putin, Trump's talking points? You can do that, but that's a fact.
Hey, Rooks, can you do me a favor and invite Marvin up here? This is a guy who understands.
Done.
Marvin's been in the room for a long time. I thought maybe if he wanted to come up, he would.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, possible, but
Oh, hi, Taylor.
that's somebody who really understands a lot.
Hey guys, how are you? I invited Marvin up. It's been a while. How's everybody doing?
Marvin, he
Kenny.
hated Trump.
Christy, I see Christy down there.
So Mitchell, would you have taken a flat fee or a percentage for your?
How's your weekend been?
What is that?
You said you would have brokered the deal. Would you have taken a flat fee or a
How's your
percentage?
weekend been?
Nothing whatsoever. Nothing. A percentage. No, I just hate to. It drives me crazy when people don't communicate. And there's a lot of lives at stake here. I would have flown there on my own dime.
Rook, sir, I did not actually deny that he thanked America more than once and 30 plus times. That's just a fact. It's a well-known fact. What I was saying is that he was getting a certain message and that it showed in his attitude. So it's not about how many times and when specifically he thanked the United States, but there was a certain aura of entitlement that I sensed like in every single time. And in this particular meeting too, and sorry, that's just my feeling from him. And I think that did not serve him well.
Yeah, the first thing he said was, I want to thank Trump for inviting me here, and I want to thank you for everything. But it was so generic and not sincere. But that was the first thing he said. So when Vance went after him, have you ever said thank you? He didn't say yes at the very beginning.
Yeah, it was correct. Yeah, absolutely.
But his attitude, I mean, he was rolling his eyes from, like, really early on. 5 minutes in, you could see his face.
There was actually the moment when the confrontation reached its highest level. Zelensky kind of, bent his head and he just whispered something. And then there was a Russian commentator that said literally that at this moment he kind of interjected one word, which is in Russian, bitch. Literally it means bitch. And that's kind of in Russian means like it's basically used as a highest level of frustration, but it's not, it's a non-normative word. And they're like, what the heck? And there was this a lady, the Ukrainian journalist, who very clearly, she just buried her head in her arms when Zelensky started, like, in the middle of it, he started like, hey, JD, can I ask you a question? And then he just started asking this question, which was, out of format because, they essentially had this photo op with the media, and all they were supposed to do really at this point is say, that's what we're going to discuss, that's what our roughly goals, and if there's any like contradictions, any controversies, they will discuss that the door's closed. And Zelensky, instead of that, just went straight to say, to challenge Vance. And maybe he can be 10,000 times right on somebody's opinion, but that's just not the place and time to do that. That's all. He should really fire all his consultants and, hire somebody probably from the West who knows all this diplomatic etiquette and whatnot.
Yeah, it was at minute 24 that he first pissed off Trump. And you could see it on Trump's face. But the thing that I don't understand is Trump knows he's agitated. He can clearly see him. Why didn't he stop it? Why didn't he go like, okay, enough, we'll talk later? Like, you would think, like, they're not reading each other's expressions. Like, I looked at it like it was almost like two kids that are both on the spectrum that just aren't getting the social cues from each other.
Yeah, that's explosive combination of two incompatible personalities.
I think the ultimate outcome would be if the mayor of Kiev steps up, like I'm saying, just step aside, let him handle it. He's actually a pretty solid guy. Of all the people I've ever interviewed, I have a lot of respect for him.
I'm really interested in Rookster's take on what happened. He's been defending Zelensky ever since I entered this room. I'm really interested in his take on what happened, this absurdity that happened in Oslo.
Okay, so if you're anti-Zelensky, can you at least see his position, that he feels like he's going to be killed by 1,000 cuts? He gives up the Donbass region. He gives Trump what he wants. He doesn't get what he's after, which is air support if Putin is to cross over and do something on the eastern and north side of it. Can you at least see his position, that he's as scared as fuck, and he knows that he no longer has the support of his people, and he's trying to go home with some sort of concession? I mean, yeah, he came across really bad in that interview, but can you at least see his side of it?
Well, I'm not that old, but I'm old enough to say that I have never seen the President of the United States being disrespected the way he was actually that day, in that particular place.
Oh, you don't remember the shoe that got thrown at them? Okay, I know it wasn't a world leader, but
that was different. That was very similar to the slap that Macron got one day when he was walking down the street in Paris. That was totally different. The context was absolutely different. When a leader was trying to make peace, when trying to settle some sort of a endless conflict, absurd conflict in the world, and being treated like that, that's a totally different context. And I'm still interested in Rookster's take on it, because he's been trying for Zelensky ever since.
I hear you, but when you're in the public eye, you have to expect this. Like, if you've ever been on a red carpet, the photographers are yelling some pretty awful things at celebrities trying to get their attention, and they have to just let it wash off of them. Trump is the president of the United States. If he can't let something go by, right, he got offended by what Zelensky was saying, right? You somehow have to just be like, okay, whatever, doesn't matter. We're here to make a deal. Say whatever you want. You know, sticks and stones and all.
You know, the way I look at it is that it is a train. This whole war is a train compartment going on a rail with people being tied, endless number of people being tied on that rail. The train is going endlessly, and there is a lever, right? One president, who happens to be the president of the United States, is just like proposing just shifting this lever to the other side, so that we would at least hold and make some stop to this compartment, so that those people tied on this rail wouldn't be killed endlessly. And you come, instead of appreciating this gesture to protect your own people and country, you insult the vice president, telling him what negotiations are you talking about? When the most powerful state in the world is proposing for a peace deal, you tell them what negotiations he's talking about? You keep the rail going just to go over those people tied on this endless rail of war.
Okay, so you want to hear my 2 cents? Let me give you my 2 cents.
Try not to cry on Zelensky, I go.
Try not to what?
Just go ahead.
Okay, so I'm not spoken to like defend Zelensky, even though I would if you push me. My point.
No, please, I would like to listen to a transparent take. If you would like to defend Zelensky, please go ahead.
Okay. My point started when you made a ridiculous claim that Russia put 25 million people, 25 million men of their own soldiers in the Second World War in order to defend our democracy. That's a claim you made. That's what
This is not a claim I made. This is not a claim I made. The person who made that claim left that stage a long time ago.
Okay, so my point is that that's the claim that was made on your side of this argument when I came on stage. And my point is that, my bigger point is that Russia is not our friend. There is no debate in Russia. There's not two parties where one party says Russia, U.S. is our friend, and the other party says U.S. is not our friend. They're not our friend.
Love
There's no
music.
debate on that side.
Oh,
But somehow, through misinformation, through interfering in our elections, interfering in our politics, they have managed to get us.
So this is what you're doing is misinformation. Excuse me, I'm going to have to interrupt you. But they never
You're not
interfered.
going to interrupt me because I'm.
Elliot, let him talk.
So, my point is that Russia is not a friend of ours. You are a Russian talking point. You've said really ridiculous things on this stage yourself. My point was that Russia is not our friend. Ukraine did not start this war. These are facts. These are not things that you can, like the rest of the world, they're laughing. Maybe in Moscow you can make people believe that Ukraine attacked Russia first. But even Trump supporters don't seriously believe that fact, that this war was started by Russia. They're not our friends. There's no debate on the other side like we are here, like crazy people fighting each other. And Zelensky is just a man trying to defend his country. A lot of bullshit you said, like he's asking for money so he can go do more coke. Like these are just not even worthy of a response. Like really, he has to come to the White House to beg for money for coke. Like this is the kind of stupid talking points you have, as long as I've seen on the stage, and it forces me to defend Zelensky. I don't actually disagree with not funding the war. What I say, the point I made initially, was that the master deal maker out of the deal, Donald Trump, made no deal. He went to Putin, he got on his knees, and he said, you can have everything you want. Everything you want. Everything you've grabbed so far is yours. And if you can grab more land before Zelensky signs this, that would be yours too.
That's what he should have done. That's what he should have done. What would you propose he do? Who's going to push him back?
But this is not.
I think the best thing he could do is that, given where we're at.
This was a contract between you and I. It would not be even enforceable. There's no consideration. There's nothing.
It doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is, unless you would like the entire country taken over, I don't know that you have a leg to stand on here. And enforcing any kind of pushback of Russia isn't going to happen.
I don't think Russia is close to. I don't think the North Korean soldiers watching porn are about to take over the rest of Ukraine. I don't think this is like.
Listen, if we let this go on, and that's fine. If you all want to keep duking it out, it's just grabbing people off the street to throw into the meat grinder. Hey, more power to you. I think people would like to see it ended, and I think the American people are done funding it. This isn't about believing Putin.
I have no problem with the American people being done funding it. I have no problem with that.
Right, and there was a deal brokered, and he is trying to get American assurances. Yes, there was.
I want to make a deal with you, Al. How about you send me 20 gallons of wine every week?
Yes.
And in return, actually, there's nothing in return.
Okay,
it's just a deal.
fine. But if I agree to that, and then we come to sign, and I say, oh, by the way, I would like you to throw in some bourbon. I'm not signing it now unless you sign in the bourbon. Oh, that wasn't part of the deal, was it?
I cannot take you to court in this deal.
That's right. So now you're going to have to just leave without the wine, and I won't get the bourbon, and we'll just be where we.
Well, there's no bourbon here. That's my point.
Right. So that there's nothing then for the United States to do, but to wash its hands.
Right.
We're not giving any more
I want
money.
to join now.
We're not giving forces. We're not lending air support.
You can do all of that. You just can't tell me that Trump got a great deal when there was nothing in exchange.
There was a deal.
Ukraine having everything.
The deal is that us having interest in a mineral exchange is us actually showing that we are involved in this situation.
No, Trump did not make a deal with Russia on behalf of the Ukrainians.
No. We were dealing with Zelensky.
No, he went and made a great deal with Russia. That's the claim.
There was no
He's not
deal.
doing
That's
it
the
with Russia.
point. There was no deal. There was an ask on that side. That ask was brought to Zelensky in private. In private, they have these talks. He was coming there, and I don't think anyone denies this, to sign this said deal. In the midst of this 50-minute bullshit talk, there is this additional, we'd like security assurances. That's not gonna happen.
Excuse me, I'm gonna have to say something before I leave. Listen, boss. I come up on the stage, you do not kick me down to steal man and put words in my mouth, you idiot.
Because you jumped, because I was talking and you interrupted me, so I did
Because
that.
you were putting words in my...
Okay. You interrupted me, so that's why I moved you down. So I was actually talking first. I wasn't interrupting you. I was talking. You asked me a question. I was answering your question.
Hey, I have a question, if I can. I've been listening to this for a little bit, and hey, Elle. So, Rue, is your position that going into that White House meeting there was no deal that included the 50% ownership of the mineral?
He's coming
And
with the background of this meeting is that Trump completely left Ukraine out of the negotiations, went and met with Russians, told them they can have everything they want, and this is the first time the guy
No,
comes
but
to the
I'm
White
trying
House
to-
saying, what the fuck, who are
But
you
that-
allies with?
wait, no, but that's not what I'm asking. So the United States has been funding this war. Okay, good or bad, right or wrong, the United States has been funding this, right? And seeing no results from it at all. And I think Elle was trying to explain this. No results. So at some point, that definition of insanity starts to kick in there, and there's nothing there. So the deal that was made that they were discussing in the White House, my question was that 50% that the U.S. says they want ownership of in lieu of continuing to support Ukraine, because there's an in lieu. So there is a deal, like somebody's
Right.
getting something. So instead of the United States saying, here's 80 million or $80 billion, hey, give us 50% because you have no money to give us. So we'll take 50% of the mineral rights in exchange for helping out as much as we have, that you will never be able to pay us back for, that you got a loan from us for, and to an extent they got a loan, the rest of it wasn't, but we'll do all of these things, let's work this out. It's kind of like bartering. Okay, so for example, I hire you as my lawyer, and we have a deal that I pay you $300 an hour, and I can't afford that, but I have a aesthetic salon, and your wife really wants Botox. You could say, okay, well, I want this much money in Botox as long as my wife wants Botox. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, there's different ways that a deal is made. I'm just trying to understand where your point of contention with this is. Looking at it that way, the tangible versus a non-tangible is still a deal. So what part of it is, I guess, my question of what's not right about what happened?
I think the part that the Ukrainians objected to, Europeans also objected to, is that Ukraine was completely left out of the first deal that Trump, the great deal that he made with the Russians, was that you can have everything and Ukraine gets nothing. And that's the backdrop of what happened.
But that's not what it
at the
was.
White House.
But that's not what it was. What it was is at the same time and within the same framework. Look, I mean, I'm going to use this example as an attorney. And again, I'm not saying it's good or bad or anything. I'm just trying to understand where you are on this. As a lawyer, you're going to broker deals sometimes, maybe with the other side or maybe with the judge or whatever. Like, you're going to come up with settlements or, I don't know, negotiations. You're going to go through this process. At any point in time, your client isn't necessarily at the table able to open their mouth and verbalize exactly what they want, and you're not going to have at any point in time the ability to just go directly to the opposing counsel's attorney, like client, and talk directly to them and come up. As attorneys, you talk together and you figure stuff out before you take it back to somebody, right? So is it really unreasonable for the U.S. to talk to one side in isolation, talk to another side in isolation, and then write something together as a joint motion, if you will, like come up with something together. This side says this, let's put it together, and then talk about it.
Let me give you a quick analogy. I gotta go barbecue here, but here's with your example. This is a situation where I had a lawyer, and that lawyer was representing me, doing a good job, and that lawyer got fired. In this case, his name was Joe Biden. He was fired by the American people, and a new lawyer came and took over. And this new lawyer went ahead and completely changed the plan, said we're pleading guilty, we're taking the maximum sentence, we're going to jail, and so this is what happened. This is basically, understandably, I would be upset as a client because the new lawyer totally changed the plan without even consulting me, without even.
I see this totally differently. The plan wasn't working. That plan wasn't working. That served absolutely nobody. Because when you look at this, that line has not moved. The only thing that has moved are the amount of dead bodies and the money spent. So the plan wasn't working.
And the country in Ukraine that survived because Russia was.
They don't appear to be. I have a feeling, and I could be wrong, that Ukraine is not going to be able to sustain this as long as Russia. And without our help, they really can't. So the plan wasn't working. The American people are no longer willing to fund this because there is no movement, no willingness to talk. So somebody has to. Somebody has got to go. And by the way, there's nothing signed. That was the whole thing. Here's what Russia's willing to do. They're willing to, I guess, essentially not wipe you out and not further this. But they wanted a buffer. So Ukraine doesn't have to accept that. They didn't have to accept that. But there was an agreement. There was a verbal agreement. He was coming there to sign. And anybody who argues that, I guess you weren't paying attention because he literally was coming. This was not a negotiation. He had agreed to this. Now wants to add on to the agreement. And they said no, because this involves us now. We're not getting involved. We are not adding, quote unquote, security measures on our behalf. We're not adding that. That's where it broke down.
I think this is where the part of the fundamentally disagree about is that.
You disagree that there was a verbal agreement that Zelensky was coming to sign?
Right, but that.
No, I'm legitimately asking.
Right, to use Mariam's analogy, the fight here between the disagreement between the White House and Zelensky was over the attorney fees, not over. But the client, Zelensky, was upset about the pleading guilty.
And he probably should have never came to sign the papers.
I don't know the details of the attorney fee agreement and whether
he probably should have just stayed home.
To me, it looks like Trump wanted out too, because maybe the deal from whether here would have taken 30 years, and Trump is mostly interested in things that benefits him personally. So that's my bias there. That
he would have benefited from that.
Your analogy is like a criminal. Her analogy was like a contract between two parties. And what happened was Zelensky said, hey, I really like this contract. Can we take this pen and just handwrite in another clause?
Right.
I'll initial it and date it so we know the clause is legitimate. But
so does anybody know what the backlash is overseas? Have they increased the fighting? And does anybody know anything? Are we getting any intel of what's going on in the front lines?
I haven't heard that. The only thing I've heard is he's over in Europe, basically trying to get Europe to come over and smooth things out of Trump. He's in England and France trying to get them to basically come to Trump and say, please make this.
Yeah, I saw that. There's a group of European leaders taking a photo up and saying, "Oh, let's proceed." I saw.
I think that's a good way to get yourself NATO broken up, but that's.
What are your thoughts on the statement of the, and I'm sorry if you guys already talked about this, but who was it? Hold on. I'm trying to find. The EU's High Representative, he said the free world needs a new leader. Did you guys talk about
Hey,
that yet?
you know what? We haven't, and that brings up a good point. Knock yourself out. If you'd like to split that bill, sure. I don't think Europe wants what it is they think that they're gonna get. I don't think anybody benefits from an isolationist United States. But if it's a strong arm tactic to get United States air support or worse, boots on the ground, that isn't going to happen either, in my opinion.
Do you think that this also has some kind of impact potentially on BRICS? Anyone? I don't know if
BRICS is falling apart already, actually. Several of the nations have already pretty much turned their back on it. I think Brazil is.
Well, I think some of that also is because of what Trump said. Like, I pity he didn't say this, I'm just saying, but it's kind of like, I pity the fool who's going to get involved with BRICS. But, when you have, like, the influence of the dynamics of, like, that international diplomacy and the way that it's worked with those Western allies, and then, the way the balance of powers worked, and now you have the EU coming out making a statement like this, I'm curious how that impacts some of these other things that they all work together on as allies.
What I would comment on is, historically, economics and other forms of geopolitics don't seem to, they seem to run two separate tracks. I think about how, you could be, isolating Venezuela and buying their oil products at the same time. Like, the economics and the politics and the, don't seem to run on the same track. So I think BRICS' idea is to create another reserve currency, right? To create a little less dominance for the U.S. dollar, which really just pisses everybody off in the West. They've been trying for a long time. They created petrodollars and other countries.
Remember when Libya tried that?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, look what they did. They got rid of Gaddafi in about 5 minutes. Yeah. So good luck with that. But I'm just saying that the economics and the politics don't always track. So I don't really see that it has anything to do with Russia's position in this conflict.
Yeah, they want an alternative to the SWIFT system. That will probably work.
That's true, yeah. Yeah, they are trying to create several alternatives to the SWIFT system, and there are a few that have been around. There's DTC and there's other interbank. Certainly some of the crypto blockchain methodologies.
What do you all think about Europe and, even Germany? Still buys natural gas from Russia.
Yep.
But Europe as a whole has been funding both sides of this the entire time. In fact, they have spent more buying Russian oil than they have spent in aid to Ukraine. Speaking of talking out of both sides of their mouth.
Yeah, no, listen, like I said, war is big business, and this has been, a forever thing. Since sticks and stones, there's always some banker, some nefarious, person comes in and funds both sides of the war.
When they said war is a racket, they weren't kidding, were they?
No, and so you got a guy like Trump, he comes in one of the three biggest businesses in the world, right? It's war, it's the pharmaceutical industry, and energy. And he comes in, with a platform to disrupt all three of those at the same time, right? I'm surprised he's still walking around. We're talking about, the three biggest economic industries, and you can't even call them industries, let's call them ecosystems in the world. And he literally ran on, making corrections to the pharmaceutical industry, getting rid of war, and creating more energy product in the U.S., all three at the same time, which I think is very, it's very, very bold.
Hi, P.
Welcome back, P.
see hands. Hello, hello.
Oh, she says she can't talk right now, but she says hello. Miriam, hi. I didn't want to interrupt you, but hi, Pam.
Can I jump in for a second? Sorry, it's about
Sure,
like
go ahead.
Dr. Meets.
Go ahead.
Sorry, thank you guys. Like, hi everyone. Dr. Meets, you talk just you talk about top 3 economic companies. What are you talking about? Like, top 3 is not even Trump is not even top 10. Like, in what aspect you talking about? You're talking about like revenue.
I think you
profit.
misunderstood what he was saying. Not Trump personally. He's talking about the 3 biggest industries in the world, not Trump.
Yeah, in the world. Oh, all right. We can talk about many people like me. I can talk about myself and Steve Jobs and Elon
No,
Musk.
no. We're talking about what are economy movers, not people.
All right. So I didn't get that. Can you elaborate a bit about like, top 3?
Since he addressed you, sorry.
Like, movers
Dr. Ali, what they're saying is that there's what are the top 3 things that fund, that keep the economy going, that trickles down. So if you look at the top 3 things, historically, wars, it's also a moneymaker, is I think what the point was somebody was trying to make. Like, what are those top 3 things? Not top 3 things like domestic policy, like what are the 3 things we see in America, like workforce, whatever, healthcare. But that way, does that help explain?
Yeah, that makes sense. But it's not a thing in Europe and the EU. Like if you say things in Europe, they're just gonna laugh at you. Like we don't have top 3 things in Europe. People are educated. They know things are different, right?
Okay, so
things it doesn't make sense. Like
what are the top 3 economic drivers? Ali, like somebody clarified, what are the top 3 economic drivers globally that continue to make the global market?
Yeah, let's talk about that. I'm happy about that. Let's talk about that. It's defense.
It's healthcare, it's energy, and it's war.
No, it's healthcare. Energy is not a thing. It's healthcare. It's defense. Right?
Energy's not a thing. Energy is a thing.
Not in America. All right. It's healthcare.
No, I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to correct you. Energy is one of the top 3 in the world economic drivers.
No, it's not.
It is. I'm sorry, sir. Factually,
Should
it
we try to
is.
GPT that? Should we right now? I'm in front of computer. Should I ask it?
I already did, honey. I did that for you.
Should I do it right now?
I already did. That's how I know.
All right. Let me check it. Right now.
In fact, I'll read it for you. Number 1 is technology. Number 2, finance and insurance. Number 3, energy, oil, gas, and renewables. Other powerhouse industries, healthcare and pharmaceuticals.
What about defense?
Well, that's the war machine. Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Well, that's where all of that comes in. It's sort of all of that. It's wrapped up in all of that.
You don't separate it. You just keep it that. Right.
Well, when you say defense, that includes a lot of those things.
No, defense has a different budget.
Listen, technology is highly
I work in defense, right? I work in it.
You use technology.
No, technology.
We had our own shit, and we band together better. We worked together better because we knew that if we didn't, we wouldn't have shit. We had our own black.
You shut up, Mark. Shut up, you Ryan. Ryan. This Ryan is not natural.
Nigga, I'm muted.
What's your boyfriend? Y'all through fighting? You jealous?
Damn. They kicked me. How the hell did they know? How did they know? How did they know my new burner? They just kick anybody who's not like in their super cool, awesome clique of wasting time talking about nothing.
So, Al, what's exciting in your world?
Nothing. She's pissed off all the time.
I just got done back from a fishing trip. That was fairly exciting.
Ooh, fishing,
That's like the
catfishing.
greatest
She was
thing of all time.
catfishing.
Gotta be on.
It was pretty great, not gonna lie.
Catfish.
Last of the ice fishing season.
I could just break away from my cell phone, like, you know, for 4 hours, I think. Well, I'm doing it now while I'm on this app, but I'm also working at the same time.
Yeah.
Did you catch anything?
I did. Caught some very nice northerns. I don't know if anybody has northerns in their area, but through the ice, they're pretty.
What color are they? Well, I can Google it. Never mind.
Northerns are not necessarily pretty to look at. I mean, they're gray, greenish, but they have teeth and they're large, so they're fun.
Oh, did I ever tell you the story about my encounter and me calling the police about
fish? What happened?
I don't know if Kelly's there. Kelly, you need to listen to this one if you're there. So my parents had just moved to Pennsylvania, and I went to help out while the movers showed up, because they were still like where they were moving from and sorting out the last minute stuff. And my aunt decided to come and hang out with me while we did this. And my parents' house is like sitting on a creek. It was like a really, really big creek. Kind of felt like a river, but anyway. So at the end of the night, we had our pizza and our wine and everything, and my aunt said, let's go swim in the creek. This was the first day that I was there, the first night. And so we step outside, we put our suits on, we step outside, and we're like starting to walk, and it was pretty high up, and it had these like stone steps that went down to the water. And as we started to get close to the steps and go down, we heard this splish splash, and this white thing kind of just like moved across, and I said, oh my God, that is a man, and he wants to rape us, and he's wearing a white t-shirt. My brain went there. So we ran inside, and I called the police.
Oh my gosh.
Because I panicked. So I called the police, and the police show up, and there's two of them. So one's going from the neighbor's yard, you know, just like in a cartoon movie, going down their steps sort of with the little flashlight, and we have ours, and we're walking behind him single file, like quietly, like one step, and we hear the splish splash, everybody stops, and we see the white, and I'm panicking at this point, and my aunt and I run inside the house, like shut the door, and so we come out finally, and they start going lower and lower, and they both have their flashlights on the water, and it turned out to be carp.
Yes, I was gonna guess.
It was carp, and it was mating season, and the water level was low, and they didn't have a lot of space to mate in.
And they're very jumpy. Yeah.
Yes, and the moon was a certain way, so it was like a huge pot of them, and it looked like a human being splashing in the water. And I never lived that down. It turned out our neighbor was a U.S. Marshal, and it was all over law enforcement. Like, everybody knew that I was the one who called the police on carp.
Miriam, this is my favorite story of maybe a very long time. That is so funny.
Oh, wow.
That is excellent.
Listening the conversation to like Dr. Mitch, Mitch Boy Holland, is it you? Is that you? Like 44 citation, one paper, and you presenting yourself as a genius here?
What?
I don't know.
I can't even tell you what you are and what you're not.
I just
So
went.
irritating.
I just went to my room. I didn't listen. What happened?
Oh, just the.
All right, guys. See you around the schoolyard. Thanks for having me in here.
Can you answer me,
What's
please?
the
Michelle White Holland, is that you? With one paper, 44 citations. and you presenting genius here.
I'm sorry. Who said they were a genius?
No idea what I'm talking about.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear anybody say they were a genius. I missed that.
Yeah, I would even eliminate that doctor, to be honest.
I never heard him say that. Is that something?
He put it in title, right? So even I can't search that. I think it might be fake, but that's common in America. You
I don't even know. What are you talking about?
I'm talking about people who just talk here and they have no idea about the board and they present themselves. That's what I'm talking about.
Again, I don't know what you're referring to.
Elon Musk and Trump, that alright, you have the president Trump and also Elon Musk. They did the same thing. I understand you cannot understand these things, but I want to show you that
same thing.
Same thing.
Okay, what is the same thing you're talking about?
Marketing, presenting.
Yes, this is what politicians do. Are you new?
Yeah, but there's a boundary, you know that?
Is there?
Like there's a boundary in law that you can be like terrible person or you can do marketing.
They all do marketing.
Do you know that?
They all market. I don't know if you've ever been involved in a political campaign. They start fundraising from the moment they announce. They never stop. I mean, never stop. It's all a campaign.
You mean everyone?
Everyone. Yes, every one of them.
And they